So we're here in the kitchen with Alice, and I've got an open jar of applesauce. I'm pretty keen to see what you can whip up with this one.
Well, it's a pretty good one because applesauce can be used for lots of things. We've got some cranberry sauce as well, some dried fruit, and we've got some sad mangy fruit over here. So let's whack it all together, pop it in some pastry, and make some shame to waste apple puffs.
Wow.
So it's easy to do. All you have to do is pop everything into a pot, something like that, and reduce it down to kind of like a compote. And sort of dry enough that it won't run all around the shop, but the puff will keep it in place.
So just the fruit or something else?
You can have the fruit in there, you can pop some vanilla beans, some different spices. Sort of spices that you're thinking about are sort of like cinnamon, maybe a little bit of nutmeg if you want to, maybe some clove, a little bit of star anise, those sorts of things.
Okay, sounds quite Christmassy.
Very Christmassy, totally, yeah. And so if you want kind of like a fruit mince taste, they're the sort of things that you can put in there. But I like to pop a little bit of lemon zest in there because I find that it kind of helps to balance out the acidity. We've got some sad strawberries.
They do look sad.
They look really sad. So I feel like the sad strawberries we will use, and they will give a little bit of the acidity that we're looking for. So we won't go too nuts with that, but just keep tasting it. Always have a couple of tasting spoons around. Just keep tasting the recipe. Make sure that it all
So I just want to make sure we're not trying to create a complicated dish here.
No way. Yeah. We're literally just whacking things in a pot, putting it on the heat, and just watching it every now and then.
Because I'm just thinking Boxing Day, I've got leftover ingredients. I don't want to be, spending hours in the kitchen or running back to the store.
Exactly. So all you want to do is whack it on the stove and then get on with your Christmas cleaning. Easy, done. Okay, so when you do have sad fruit like this, it's really important that anything that's like super duper moldy, you just get rid of. And this actually reminds me of my grandmother because I remember growing up, she always used to buy the bargain fruit bags of the sad fruit at the grocer, and it used to gross me out a little bit. But now as I get older, I realise that she was onto a good thing because fruit gets thrown out way too quickly, and there's a reason why this is the best fruit. Because as it gets older, it actually becomes sweeter.
So the flavour's really...
The flavour's there, it's intense.
Yeah.
And so all you have to do is just get rid of the mouldy bits.
Yeah.
And you've got, especially if you're cutting it up anyway.
So we shouldn't be so fussy about trying to pick the perfect looking fruit.
No way. I think that our perceptions of what fruit need to look like are swayed by, let's say, advertising or swayed by images that we see in the media when... Fruit looks okay even when it's a little bit bruised. So this, unfortunately, I think we're just going to have to but I think we're going to have to pop that in the compost.
Okay.
But at least it's still being used for something. Now we've got a bit of a melancholy apple as well.
It's a bit pale.
It's a bit pale, a bit soft, but it still smells really lovely. It's still a golden delicious. So let's go with it. Now, so we just want to get rid of that. Thankfully, there's nothing that we actually really need to get too crazy about with this one. So I'm going to get you to hold these strawberries for me.
No problem.
Thank you. You can be my 5 or 6 year old.
Okay.
Yes, terrific. Now, so I'm going to zest this lemon. Now, the reason that I'm putting the zest in rather than lemon juice is because the lemon juice is very acidic, whereas the zest tends to have a lot more depth of flavour. So the best way to use a microplate is actually upside down. Upside down. A lot of people don't know that.
No,
so all you have to do is whack it along and see how it keeps it in there. Easy, like that. And this is probably a job that I would be, if you are getting your kids to do, I'd supervise them because this is sharp.
Okay.
Very sharp. And I'd actually keep some of this zest aside just to pop on fresh right at the end because it'll create some height in the recipe and colour as well.
Okay.
So what I'll get you to do while I'm zesting is cut those strawberries again, keep it chunky. So, and you can have, if you've got some friends around, you can get your friends to help you with the recipe. It's great because there are no mistakes to be made with this.
Okay. It's forgiving.
It's very forgiving, and especially on a giving day like Boxing Day, you want a recipe that's all about including people in it. Yeah. And then you can all eat it after. So I'm going to pop these cranberries in as well. They're just some dried cranberries. If you've got any sort of dried fruit, you can pop that in there as well. It's literally just also for texture, but colour as well. You can see there the colours in this are stunning. And they're kind of Christmassy colours as well. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of this cranberry sauce. Again, you can see I'm not really measuring out because once the heat hits it, that's when we're actually going to know what the taste's all about, and that's when we can start adjusting. So
I guess that's the other thing with leftovers is you never know how much you're going to get. Like you might have a quarter of a jar or half a jar, so it's not too important to stick to a recipe.
No way, it's not too important to stick to a recipe. The only time when a recipe is really important is when you're baking. That is the only time when the principles of ratio will not lead you astray. And I've learned that from personal experience. But with something like this, it's very forgiving and it's really easy, especially if you don't cook much yourself. This is something that's really easy to give a go. So let's pop that on the heat. And a lot of these fruits have quite a bit of moisture in them, so I haven't put any extra water in or any of that. It's going to release out itself.
Okay.
There you go. Now this is an induction cooktop, so that means that it's going to come to temperature in a completely different way. But again, it's all about managing the heat in the kitchen. So in this case, a lot of people would freak out and think, oh no, I don't know. Say if something starts to burn, just remember, you control the heat. The heat does not control you. So you can take it off the heat. It's really not that hard. Just be really careful. Watch it every now and then. A watch pot will never burn the inside of your apple puffs.
You mentioned herbs and Christmassy things.
Yes.
Are we going to add those or?
Perfect. Yeah. So something like cinnamon, cinnamon stick like that, just whack it in there on its own because you'll take it out at the end. You don't want someone to accidentally find a just a random cinnamon stick hanging out of their parcel. So that goes in there. And what else have we got? I love that you've got these. Now this is something that everyone's got kind of hanging around in the back of the pantry, don't they?
Yeah.
Spices that they might have bought for just one recipe and they're just still there.
Yeah.
And so finding other ways to use spices is a really fantastic way of building flavour. And spices originally were actually used to preserve food. So if something has, say, coriander seeds in it, it actually preserves for longer than if it doesn't.
Okay,
I
didn't know that. Yeah.
So everything's got
nature's
its place.
way. Yeah.
Nature's way, that's right. So I'm going to pop a little bit of this nutmeg. If you do buy nutmeg, buy it whole because that's going to keep for a lot longer. So, and you just grate it as you need it. So just a little bit of that nutmeg in there. This is going to be quite fruit mincy, isn't it? Like a little minced tart.
Yeah.
Okay, and nutmeg's really strong, so don't go nuts with it.
Okay.
Okay, so pop that away. And cool, so that is essentially the first part of that recipe done.
All right.
Job done.
Exciting. So we've got our sad fruit in the pot.
Not so sad anymore.
So what are we doing now? I see the puff pastry there.
Well, we've got the saving grace for any sort of leftovers, pastry. Because as soon as you whack something into some pastry and bake it, it's a whole new dish. No one will even know that someone else could have eaten it as a completely different meal. So this is a puff pastry. Now the great thing about puff is that it puffs, which means it has a nice sort of crumbly, flaky deliciousness.
Yes.
And so we're going to use that to pop the compote in. All we have to do is purchase some puff pastry, and you can do that from any market, any supermarket. There are so many different ones around. Just find one that you like. And you don't have to make it yourself. Seriously, it's a lot of work. And there's just no point. It's Boxing Day. You just want to get things done.
Yeah.
So all you have to do with this is cut it into quarters. It all comes in like a standard sort of square sheets.
Yep.
Let's say we've got 4 people, 1 each, yes, or
Yes,
2 people, 2 each.
Greedy.
So we've got some cooled mixture, and we're going to pop that cooled mixture into the middle of each of these, and then I'll show you what to do next.
Perfect.
So we've got this mix. I would suggest you cool it down a little bit before you try to touch it. But we're in a rush. It's Boxing Day. We want to get things done and eaten as soon as possible. So you know that this is ready essentially when the apple is soft enough to bite through. So at the moment, I'd say it's probably another 10, 15 off, but let's just pretend. So let's pop a little bit of that mix in there because I think the most important part here is the technique of actually folding it over. And I say technique, but it's really not hard. So we'll grab a spoon, maybe one of the tasting spoons. We're talking maybe a tablespoon of filling. You don't want to overfill.
Yep. I think that's where I've gone wrong in the past.
And it's just gone everywhere.
Yeah.
Amazing. Which is cool because it's kind of plentiful looking. Now, this is clearly not a tablespoon. So we'll say 2 of these. And you want to get a nice sort of cross section of the different the different spices, the different sort of fruits in there, whatever it is that you've got in there, make sure you get a little bit
I just
of
can't believe that this is sad fruit and applesauce. It just looks and smells so good.
Doesn't it? And I suppose the real key is to realise that you don't need to put labels on it. It doesn't have to be sad fruit or applesauce. It can just be an apple, let's say puree, and softer fruit. So now what we're going to do is fold this over. Now this takes me right back because I used to do this sort of stuff with my grandma all the time. Now fold this over. If you need to as well, because this is store-bought, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to actually grip. So have a little bowl of egg wash, or even you can use milk as well if there are egg issues. And you just use the egg wash to moisten and create almost like a glue effect. So you can see there. And you're also going to use the egg wash to brush it with, because that's what's going to create that golden crunch topping. Now, see, it's almost like a little envelope, right? This goes on the top. There we go. Now you can dust that with anything. If you've got some of that cinnamon sugar, dust it with that. You can obviously dust it if you've only got cinnamon sticks. You can grate a little bit of that. You might use one of those. Can you see? It's child's play, really. This is the job you get your kids to do.
Yeah.
And if it's a little bit artistic, let's face it, this is a little bit artistic. It's actually kind of special because it shows that it's been made at home.
Yeah.
I think that anything that looks too uniform clearly looks like it's been bought in a store, whereas this looks fun and special, and they'll have a really nice ownership over it, which will mean that they'll be more inclined to eat that than a packet of chips. Leftovers is reinventing a different and making a new meal. That's what it is. So you're kind of just allowing that filling to be like the centerpiece.
Yeah.
And you're folding that around. And again, I am by no means a baker. I'm just playing with this pastry and making a shape. It's really not hard to do. And if you've got a little bit of leftover, you can kind of twist that around. Like a little rosette.
That looks awesome. That looks so good.
Fun?
Yeah.
Thanks. So you can just dust and brush that again with the egg wash.
Okay.
Remember that egg wash goes over anything that I bake. Gets a bit of egg wash because it makes everything look prettier. But what you can actually do as well is use the sauce in there as a glaze, because the sugar in that will actually make it look kind of crumbly.
So when you get the pastries, the store-bought ones, that's when you see that sticky glaze, that's how they do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So, boom. What else do you want to challenge me with? Let's try a different shape. Do you want to try one?
Yeah, I'll try one.
Fabulous. Okay, so any sort of shape you want.
Okay. Dollop.
You dollop in there. Perfect. And I actually, to tell you the truth, as much as this could use a little bit more time cooking-wise, if you like your fruit a little bit firmer in a compote, just leave it the way it is. That's the best part about something like leftovers, is that you've made it yourself, you know exactly what's gone into it, and you can make it the way you want to make it. Yes. Oh, look, pretty. And it's so uniform too. Yes. Nice work.
I'm just trying to not
This is why we make a
the
good team.
escapes.
We're the yin and yang of the kitchen. And it's okay if a little bit of something escapes, because I think it makes it look quite Moorish, doesn't it?
And my little egg wash.
Look at you. Looks like a little happy face with some happy fruit inside. Nice. Now be careful with that egg wash. You can over egg wash something, and then you'll literally get a bit of scrambled egg on the top. So you want to avoid that. So just a little bit. You want it as a glaze, I guess. Now the final one.
The final one.
You're challenging me here. We could roll it.
We could. Yeah.
Roll it with our homies. There we go. Let's see.
So leftovers should be fun.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And involve the family in the process of what you do with leftovers, because then they'll be more likely to take ownership over things that could potentially go in the bin. Yeah. And they'll think, well, Mum, this is what I can do with this.
I guess a lot of wastefulness comes from not eating our food. So if we're increasing ownership in terms of kids being involved, I see that we're solving that problem, because they're going to eat something that they've put the time and energy into.
100%. See, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Just steal it up in a parcel, and it's like a little croissant. There we go. See, perfect. Excellent. With a little fruit surprise inside. Oh, let's bake them. Cool. So that'll bake at 180 degrees for about 15-20 minutes. Just watch it. When it's golden brown, it's ready.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to smell it as well. So let's get right on to our next recipe.